All right, we're live. Max Thake with Peaq Network. Welcome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you. It's always good to have new projects on or that are new to me. And I've been hearing when my partner Max and I put out the thing on Twitter, like, "Hey, who should we talk to?" A lot of people, so we should talk to Peaq. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk to you.
That's
Um,
a good sign.
yeah. No, you guys are getting some traction. Before we do Peaq stuff, let's just give folks a little bit of background on you. If you don't mind, I'll do the best I can, and then you kind of fill in any of the gaps.
Go for it.
So you're from Malta. Your English is fucking flawless. You
Thank
speak
you.
Maltese, French, and English. So the trilingual. As an American, we just don't speak any other languages. So
So
that's
I've
always
heard.
impressive. Yeah. Some of us speak a little bit of Spanish. Let's see. You're way into this like young entrepreneur thing where you've been crushing and you're trying to change the world with business, which I see is it seems like it's getting more prevalent here, but it seems like a big kind of European thing. So that's kind of cool to see as well. And then it looks like you're a little bit of scuba diving enthusiast. I saw
Yep.
you're into that a little bit, so that's
Yeah.
cool. And is Malta good diving?
It's fantastic
It's
diving. Yeah, it's
fantastic
a bit
diving.
like an underwater museum.
Okay.
I mean, Malta was like bombed big time during World War II, and there are a lot of
Yeah.
sunken wrecks, ships, even planes all around the island. So it's a
Oh,
great
that's
place.
right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the Italians had the first kind of frogmen in modern times, and I think they did a bunch of work like riding torpedoes in and sinking ships. So maybe there's some Italian sunk ships around there, but that's pretty cool. I didn't know that about
Yeah.
Malta.
Yeah. If you're into
Um,
diving, it's a great place to go.
yeah. I think I've done all the diving I'm going to do. My ears are pretty cooked by now, but I don't mind swimming around on the surface. Cool. So that's kind of that's. I think that's you. That's And there's like a long list of stuff that you've done and been into. Forbes Technology Council, Sigma Squared. You did some marketing for Advanced Blockchain AG, Kairos Fellow. Like all of these kind of markers of like, hey, here's a young dude, super hard hustler, super into making the world a better place. That's kind of my general read. Is that kind of line it up?
It's really nice that it comes across that way, but it's that's just like one tiny piece of the puzzle. I've got two fantastic co-founders. We've been side by side for upwards of 6 years now. Feels like a really long time, and we've developed together over those years. So we've stuck around, and now the team at EOT Labs is 30 people plus. So yeah,
Wow. Okay.
it's
Cool.
growing.
So let's dive into. So Peak came out of EOT. I don't understand the connection there. Does EOT own Peak? What's going on?
EOT Labs is basically the main team developing the decentralized Peak network.
Okay.
So EOT Labs has been around in one shape or form or the other since 2017.
Yep.
So we've actually been in this IoT meets Web3 space since then.
Yep.
DePIN is a relatively new term, of course, since I
Yeah. Yeah.
think January or so, we've been calling it DePIN. But
Yeah.
as you know, DePINs and this realm of Web3 has existed for many, many years. I mean, we've been in 2017 and there have been projects in from even before then. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a neat space, and it's neat to see. We actually should probably talk about what Peak is and what Peak does, and then we'll get to the rest of stuff. So walk me through what Peak is and what it does.
I think that the best way to describe it, at least for this podcast, would be a layer one for DePIN. What we generally say is peak powers the economy of things, which we
Yep.
can also get into. But the two go hand in hand massively. So a layer one blockchain for DePIN, by that I mean we believe we really see ourselves as the best place to develop a decentralized physical infrastructure network.
Yep.
We have a network, or we're building a network that incentivizes people to deploy more and more machines and to keep them there, to retain the machines on the network.
Hmm.
Um, we've got a software development kit that just came out last week, which over time we want to make it as easy as possible, of course, to develop DePINs on Peak, but you could develop or build up a DePIN hopefully within 72 hours. Like that's what we're aiming for.
Holy
Obviously, it's going
smokes.
to
Okay.
take much longer generally in terms of research and everything that goes around it. But technically speaking, we want to really bring it down, lower those barriers to entry.
Yep.
And the SDK comes along with all kinds of functions. So out of the box, ready to deploy functions like identity for machine, access control, payment functions, rewards, storage, everything you'd need as a DePIN founder, basically, to
Yep.
build a DePIN super fast. And also in compliance with EU regulation. We're part of the 𝐦𝐢𝐬𝐷 consortium. So a
Yep.
bunch of fantastic names coming together there.
Yeah,
big enterprises like Bosch and Airbus, but also fantastic Web3 projects. We recently collaborated with Fetch, for example.
that's right. I saw that. And Fetch
Yeah.
is an AI. It looks like Europe's going to kind of try and hamper the development of AI a little bit.
I
Europeans
sure
are
hope
pretty
not.
scared of it. Yeah, I hope not too, because it seems like a significant disadvantage. But it's an interesting wrinkle and probably a side path. So help me understand, if I'm in the regular kind of blockchain world and I came from Helium, how do I participate or mine or do anything, maybe as a non-technical user in Peaq, or is it right now it's only for kind of really technical users?
But as a layer one,
Not
we're
going to
more
touch it.
appealing to the builders, right? So
Yep. Okay.
you would think of a Helium as a layer two, so to speak.
Yep.
So in that sense, I mean, further down the line, you're going to be able to purchase and co-own machines on the Peaq network, which then go out and participate in services on a number of different DePINs. Like if we look a little bit into the
Got it.
future, you could crowd fund, say, an autonomous car, which then provides a multitude of different services on different DePINs. You could have car sharing, vehicle sharing, car sharing, ride sharing, I should say,
Yep.
and delivery, all sorts of things with one co-owned vehicle, which then, depending on availability and demand, would decide to offer a service on one DePIN versus another. So really developing this space for these DePINs to come together. And I guess if that's zooming in on the DePIN specifically, but if you zoom out and you think, okay, all these DePINs on Peaq are going to be working at the same time and working in conjunction, the result is actually what we call the economy of things. So all these connected vehicles, robots, and devices providing services to one another and to people. That's what we would refer to as the economy of things. Obviously, not going through big tech. That's the big shift, right? We're not
Right.
going through corporations. It would all be done in a decentralized fashion.
Okay. So there's this, I think the cool kids call this composability. Is that like across a bunch of different systems, you can use the same kind of information. So these maybe two different DePINs, one working in a car space, one working in like the earthquake detection space, they can somehow share information on Peaq.
Yeah, we'd
And
expect all kinds of machines to interact and trade, but also exchange information, sell information on behalf of users or behalf of
okay.
themselves. Yeah, marketplaces to emerge. Yeah.
Okay. And this is similar to what 𝐼oTeX is doing, right? Like you guys are kind of, I guess you'd be competitors in this space. You're both like setting up the foundation for other companies to come in and say, okay, we can build on top of this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot in common with IoTeX, but it's also worth noting that we're tackling a 5 trillion industry. There's plenty of room for different perspectives, different ways of doing things, and we're pulling the same rope here. I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to think of it. Because I know you just, I think you wrote this article where you're like DePIN is bigger than a $3.5 trillion market. And here's why. And really, this is kind of the point you're making here.
Yeah, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. 3.5 million, I think, was the initial estimation by Messari,
Yeah.
who brought everyone together under this DePIN umbrella, which we were all really happy about.
Yeah.
But then looking into it further, we see mobility as its own sector, and in the future, or maybe just starting now, agriculture potentially also as its own sector. I would even potentially add another sector for layer one, such as Peaq and IoTeX.
Really? Okay. So talk me through, we talked a little bit before about this ag side, is walk me through what you're thinking about agriculture and in the DePIN space.
Yeah, so it's the same principle. So when we talk about DePIN, of course, we're talking about token incentivized physical infrastructure. And in my view, at least, or in our view at EOT Labs, agriculture, or at least elements of it, can be considered physical infrastructure. So you
Are
could,
you are you talking about like a I don't know, an ear of corn being an NFT, or is what do you mean by that?
we're talking about the machines here.
Okay.
So by physical
Right.
infrastructure, we're talking about the machines. We can
Got it.
play it simple, talk about vertical farms. You can
Yep.
have co-ownership of vertical farms where you have robots doing everything from start to finish, and then robots or delivery vehicles, autonomous delivery vehicles, taking the produce then to the end. I was going to say end user, but in this case, consumer, I suppose.
Yep.
So same
Okay.
principle that you'd apply to telco deepens, applied also to agriculture. We see that as possible.
Huh. And then how are you, so you guys are providing the foundation for folks to work on. How are you finding people to build a DePIN? Are you guys going out and kind of looking around for projects that currently exist? Are you encouraging folks to build projects that you think of? How are you going and through doing that?
There are a number of ways. So anyone in the space who's really interested in DePIN hopefully comes across Peaq and then can see for themselves and dive into the docs and figure out why this is a good place to build. But then more proactive measures would include, speaking with universities, or there are some interesting startups such as 𝐒𝐻, who we partnered with a couple of weeks back, who's basically kind of like a Y Combinator in Europe, really focused on getting the best entrepreneurs to work on the toughest problems.
Okay.
And by collaborating with them directly, we speak to fantastic entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And
that's
those
smart.
work,
Okay.
yeah. So a number of different ways. There's also a grant program out there. So we provide some financial incentive also to come and get started on Peaq. And then after that, funding rounds begin and everything can take off.
Yep. And then you guys are building a layer 1, but I was looking at Peaq and it looks like I need a Polkadot wallet to interact with it. Is that just to start, or kind of walk me through what that entails? I was looking at like Peaq, I forget what it was, Peaq something. Peaq Power.
Yeah, so Peaq will run for Polkadot parachain. So opening up the economy of things to a real thriving ecosystem. But that hasn't happened yet. So that's further down the line. What's sooner is Crest, Peaq's canary network, which will run on kusama. So the same way kusama is a canary network to Polkadot, Crest is a canary network to Peaq. But in the case of DePIN, that's pretty interesting because you're dealing with real world vehicles and people, and all sorts of stuff can go wrong. So this is an opportunity. I think the only layer 1 for DePIN that allows builders of applications, builders of DePINs to test everything out on a production or a live blockchain network before launching on the real network with real people. So, trying not to risk killing anyone. And that will launch in just a couple of weeks. So that's pretty soon.
Yeah, usually it's considered desirable not to kill people when you're testing.
Usually, yeah. Comes in handy.
That's funny. So you got a little bit of a marketing background. When you're walking around, go to a coffee shop and you talk to some grandma or someone who doesn't know anything about blockchain, how are you explaining Peaq to them, if at all? Or when they ask you what you do, you're like, I just do like geeky stuff, and then change the subject.
I tried for a really long time. My grandparents eventually gave up.
Yeah.
But I guess the simplest version, I like to believe a lot of people know what the Internet of Things is, or at least you can then say that it's got to do with any vehicle, robot, or device connected to the internet. And that currently, when that happens, that's happening on big tech's watch. And what we want to do is, keep the stuff connected, keep letting them do everything they need to do, exchange information, providing services, but they shouldn't be on big tech's watch. And that's why Peaq exists.
Got it. And then you guys are defining, you've said machine a couple times. A machine is anything, any of these the T in IoT, Internet of Things. That's anything. So it could be a small machine, it could be a large tractor, it could be a temperature sensor. That all falls under machine. Is that correct?
Yeah, precisely. So we've had that debate internally about what to call it. Like Internet of Things, should we stick with things? But then if you say things, it could be anything. Machine is a bit more like you get a sense, you have a picture in your head of what a machine is. But we use it, to mean any vehicle, robot, or device.
Okay. And then what are you looking at, let's say, in the next, I don't know, we'll do 3. Like what's going to happen kind of next month, what's going to happen in the next quarter of the year, and what's going to happen in the next, like, say, 3 years. So short, medium, long-term ideas, plans, hopes, dreams.
Okay, let's go short term first, and then we can expand a little bit. Short term, there'll be some more exciting news with more DePINs joining.
Okay. Ooh, a teaser.
Yeah. We've got thousands. I think definitely upwards of 10,000 devices and close to 20,000 already on Peaq. And we are expecting a few more really exciting DePINs to join soon, and also some form of interoperability with the Cosmos ecosystem. So we really believe in the multi-chain future. Polkadot is one element of this. Of course, Ethereum is massive and Cosmos is too. So they'll be using that direction too. Yeah. And then looking further into the future, I mean, we recently discussed internally, we looked at the projects already building in Peaq, and there's so much you can already do just as an individual in this economy of things on Peaq. Wake up in the morning, find a car via one DePIN, charge it at another, get 5G via another, sell your data via another. There's so much already. And looking into the 2-3 year future, we want to to see this, become a real reality. The economy of things is both a future and something which is right now. It's happening, it's evolving, but if you look into the future and the economy of things really taking root, everything I mentioned about all these connected devices providing services semi-autonomously or fully autonomously, this is going to become a thing. It's increasingly becoming a thing. You have autonomous vehicles and where you're at, close by at least, with Zoox and a bunch of other really interesting companies. I mean, it's going to happen sooner than people think. And it's really critical that it happens on Web3 foundations, because if it happens, if all of these increasingly intelligent devices, machines, soak up all the data, all the value, and then they're just the arm of a big tech corporation. And then at the same time, lots and lots of people are losing their jobs to this kind of technology. We're going to end up in a really, I don't want to say dystopia, but it is kind of dystopian in terms of where we're going to end up.
Definitely a big unknown, and it'd be nicer to redistribute that value, or to distribute that value across the spectrum. I can see that. Cool. And that's both like the medium and the long-term view, it sounds like.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, the Peaq Network will come out. We'll launch it towards the end of this year, early next. Let's see. Well, very market dependent, of course, as well.
Sure.
So yeah, Crest Network, then the Peaq Network launch. That's the next big thing, I would say. Okay. And every step along the way is making the economy of things more real.
Okay. Love it, dude. Love it. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing about Peaq Network. I'm looking forward to having you come back and tell us kind of what the next thing is as you guys have updates for us. So thanks for your time today.
Let's do it. I enjoyed it. Yeah. Thanks for having us.